Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of the V8ESC Backfire podcast. In with me tonight, I've got our usual suspects of Mr. Johnny Kloosterman and Mr. Tony Brandon. Good evening, guys.
Welcome, everyone.
Evening.
And on the wheels of steel, doing the magic in the background, is Mr. Sam Boozin. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Clyde. Hello, everyone.
Okay, so tonight, unusual format. We'll be doing a race review from Bathurst last weekend. As you know, we're a week late. We just couldn't get everything lined up last weekend. In that, we'll talk about driving standards. We'll run through the standards after that. I then put Johnny and Tony on the spot and ask them for their driver of the meeting and why they chose that driver. Our guest driver tonight is Mr. Racing in Socks himself, Ronald Moon. So he'll be joining us after the race review, and we'll be getting Ronald's thoughts on what's going on in the series and in the league, because Ronald has been with us from the start, very instrumental in getting the website up and running and things like that. We'll then have a preview of rounds 19 and 20 coming up this very Saturday from Road Atlanta. Not a lot of iRacing news going around at the moment, but I'll do my usual and ask the guys, see if they've heard anything on the grapevine. We've then got our question and answer session. So anybody watching live, if you've got any questions for anybody or for everybody, get them in the chat. Sam will make a note of them, and we'll do our best to answer them as sincerely as possible at the end. And then we'll wrap up and go to bed, or Tony will go and shovel some snow, so I've been hearing. So
yeah, we got lots of snow here in Canada today.
So I would like to start our little Bathurst preview with Johnny Brandon, who every time we go to Bathurst tells us he's not very good, likes the track but doesn't always race too well. But Johnny, second position for you, 3.5 seconds behind Tony. You must have been very, very happy with that.
I'm very, very, very happy with that. Yeah. Yeah. I keep saying lucky, but yeah, I don't know. It was very, very, very happy with that. Yeah, that's all I can say, really.
And that's enough, to be honest. At least we keep you quiet. And Tony, obviously, hell of a meeting for you. Apart from a few laps, pretty much led most of it. And well, you obviously made no mistakes or none that killed your car.
Yeah, no, the race was good. Really comfortable around Bathurst, and I think that our team set, which we really haven't changed for about 3 seasons now, is just one that I'm really comfortable with. And it was a good result overall. I think both Johnny and I probably got a lucky break in that Michael wasn't able to set a qualifying lap and had to start at the back there, so he had to come through the field. And I was looking over my shoulders, wondering if he was going to, make a charge at the end there, but he had an unfortunate incident.
Do you think that was a deliberate ploy? Do you think he wanted to start the back to see if he could win it?
I think we've all considered it at one point or another, but it's starting at the back's pretty risky.
But interestingly enough, I was just looking at the fastest lap times. His fastest lap was a 2:07.0, which was over half a second faster than both of you guys. Possibly with a toe down Comrod, maybe. But that's a hell of a time, 2:07.0.
Yeah, it was a good time. I was looking at the results afterwards, and no doubt he probably did get a toe at some point in time. But it's definitely a good time, and he had pace for sure. I was watching.
Yeah, and so just looking, I'm just casting my eye down the top 10, and it pains me to say that something that really jumps out me is Mr. Sam boozing in 8th place. So very, very good drive from Sam. Usual suspects at the top. Obviously, NQR did very well with 3 drivers in the top 4. Further down, I don't quite know what happened to Mike, but he finished 9 laps down. And did I hear you apologise to him, Johnny, in the race?
No.
Did I hear you should have apologised to him in the race?
No, I didn't see him. Didn't see him at all.
Michael caught the
I think
corner,
it was
Forest Elbow, was it? Coming down just before the back straight, just before Conrad, he caught the inside of the corner there and got damaged.
I
think the Victor one, Johnny, was me.
No, I think Mike had just caught Victor, was behind him, trying to get
That's
a run
right.
and caught the inside. Yeah.
So we had a 22 card grid because Harold had his problems. Now, I personally didn't see anything naughty going on. I thought the driving standards were very good. It should be because we race there every season, and it's a track that people put lots of practice in. I don't suppose. I'll go to Tony first. Obviously, you was at the front most of the time, Tony. You obviously came up against back markers and that sort of thing. I'm presuming everybody behaved themselves.
No, everybody was great. And in fact, watching the broadcast and the chat afterwards, I think that there were no hard feelings for a change.
Yeah, I must admit the chat in Discord afterwards was very much congratulating people and talking about mistakes that they'd made, but probably didn't cost anybody else any heartache. I don't really know where else to go with Bathurst. It's just one of those races that it's a win it or bin it race. Victor was very, very quick, but obviously got I think he got tangled up. And yeah, on the whole, I thought it was a very, very good race. Johnny, you?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say well done to Tony. If I'm being honest, I thought I had the race. I thought I'd done enough, and the old Leadfoot Kloosterman was in my mind the whole race, thinking there's no way he's going to use less fuel than me. I'm just going to let him go when he got past me early, sit there, save fuel the whole race, and my pit stops will be shorter, and his was shorter. And I couldn't believe it. Right up till the last stint, I thought I had it. I thought, that's it, I'm going to jump him in the final pit stop, right up to the final pit stop, and I come out, and I was nowhere near him. And I couldn't believe it. I got no idea how he managed that. It is a great race from Tony. So you won't hear me say it very often. Congrats, Tony. Deserved that one. It was impressive.
Well, I appreciate that, Johnny. But I wasn't saving fuel at all.
I know. I couldn't work it out. You were rapid and yeah.
I think my pace was a comfortable pace. It wasn't one that was setting great lap times. And to be honest with you, Johnny, I was surprised you let me go by after a couple of laps. And
I was just intent on saving the fuel.
Yeah,
and I saved fuel for most of it behind you, thinking that's it. I've got it in the bag. I was lifting off at the end of the straights, and I could not believe it when your pit stop was shorter. So it's well.
I took 15.3 gallons the second stop, and I think I took 15.9 the first stop. So whatever that is in liters.
Yeah, I took about the same. So
yeah, interesting.
I remember it was about just under 16 gallons.
Perhaps you need to give your 15 in the
second. I think I took 16 gallons in the first one and 15 in the second one, and I ran out as I crossed the line. Literally ran out coming out the final corner. So I was saving. So
I had about a half a gallon left, half a lap's worth, so maybe 7/10 of a gallon.
The Holden's obviously better on fuel economy around Bathurst.
Oh, well, yeah,
That's
obviously.
So, guys, I'd say another one of our classic endurance races around Bathurst. I don't think there was too many people upset at the end of it. Everybody seemed to do okay. If we get Sam now to put the standings up for the league, we'll just have a quick flick through those.
Am I supposed to have the podcast up somewhere?
So, obviously, we've got Johnny Brandon top of the tree at the moment with 3,469 points. 136 points lead over George. Is that enough, Johnny?
Not yet.
Obviously, we've
Oh,
got
God.
we've got the sprint and feature from Road Atlanta, and then 3 Madhouse super sprints at the short Silverstone circuit. So you're still looking to stretch that a bit more, I suppose.
I mean, what was the gap to Tony?
You've got 257 points to Tony.
Okay, barring any disastrous rounds, I'm probably okay with Tony. George is always a threat. He's so consistent, George. He's always right up there. He's always got great pace. Usually always gets the bonuses. So, it only takes one bad race. So nothing's ever, unless you've got 250 points, your 300 points, 2 bad races, 250 is not enough. You never know what's going to happen. So someone drops it in front of you and you've got nowhere to go. It's a game changer. So it's nice to be in the lead, but nothing's done until it's done. So, yeah. We'll see how
Very true. Very, very true. And Tony, obviously you're sitting in third place, 121 points behind George. I suppose your tactic is just to win the last 5 races and see where it gets you.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, I think that the points for the top 5 are pretty much set, and that's where we're going to end up finishing, barring a connection issue from someone that they can't connect to a race and they miss it completely, like unfortunately happened to Harold a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, you had that problem as well, Johnny. So you never know. The internet's a funny thing, right? And that could shake things up, but I highly doubt
figure
it's
out what
going
it
to.
was. But yeah, it wasn't actually the internet for me. It was the upgrades and scans in the PC. But anyway, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and I think Harold's problem was VR related, I believe. But so with Tony in third, we've got Chris Jackson in fourth and Harold Stadler in fifth at the moment. Onto the club championship. And Gary Croft has a 75-point lead over Nikolai Bogotyrev. And Nikolai is currently just reeling him in. Don't know what's going on with Gary. He's usually a very, very quick driver, but I think he's had a couple of ropey results lately. Ant Woodward in third. Myself, I'm in fourth, and Andrew Hoffman in fifth. In the team championships, we have got NQR Hold and Tony's team have a fairly commanding lead in that, with Johnny's team XVR Sim Racing in second and TechSense Fitstyle Motorsport coming in third. And with the amount of points on the board still to play for, I do believe that's still anybody's. I know you guys, concentrate probably more on the individual drivers' championship, but do you keep an eye on the team championship? Does it give you some bragging rights?
Of course it does. And our team's goal this year was to try and win the team championship. I think with Nickel not racing anymore, that certainly put it in our favor a little bit. But it's anything can happen with 5 races to go.
Yeah, we always look at it, but like Tony says, with Nickel dropping out, I mean, fair enough, but that kind of finished our team there. I think, didn't we run? Is Rich Warmingham actually scoring points for me now?
Rich Warmingham is scoring points for you. He did.
Yeah.
The only trouble is
We had about 4 rounds where it was just me, though, didn't we? Or 5 rounds.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be tough when that happens.
Yeah, I think if you'd have had Rich Warmingham from the start, you would have another 499 points or something like that from memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard's driving great these days too. Some really good performances from Richard.
Yeah, most definitely. Safe Driver Award. Interestingly enough, the top 3 drivers in the championship are in the top 4 of the Safe Driver Award, with Johnny leading that at the moment. The Fred Bingham Forever Forward Award. Again, Johnny, you're ahead in that. 14 places ahead of Victor. And then George, and then Tony. Funny how the same names pop up.
Victor will start at the back in one of the races just to claim the positions. He'll do me in that.
And then something that we spoke about on the last podcast was the fact that Johnny had got to 30 wins in the championship since he's been in it. And overtaken Tony, who was stuck on 29. And then Tony wins at Bathurst. So you guys are both on 30 again. So that's a good little head-to-head between you two.
It is. And it'll be interesting to see how it finishes up.
I was going to say he had a 2-season head start on me, but it wouldn't be fair to say that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it finishes up.
Okay, so just to finish off Bathurst and to put you guys on the spot, I'll go to Johnny first. Who was your driver of the meeting?
Probably Sam Boozin. A good result. Got to say, Chris Jackson did well. To be fair to Chris, he's without being funny, he's had a lot of problems recently and struggles to get a clean race and trouble with his wheels and everything else. And 4th place, 0 incursions. That's pretty impressive. But I think I'll probably have to go with Sam Boozin, just to jump in and get 8th. Yeah, I think it's pretty impressive.
And Tony, your driver of the meeting?
Have multiple drivers. Anybody that got 0 incursions in the race, which I think there was 5 in total. And if I recall, in the preview to Bathurst, you told me no one would be able to do that.
Oh, I can't remember that.
Yeah, but 5 drivers with 0, and I think a couple with only 1 incursion. So, for 40 odd laps around Bathurst, I think that's pretty impressive by all of them.
Do you know where I got my 1? Just to put it out there, because I'm frustrated about it. Turn 1, behind the back marker, the rear steps had just touched the grass on the inside a bit too much. 1 incursion. I was so disappointed.
Yeah, cost you 25 points.
Yep.
Okay, well, I agree with both of you. Anybody that gets 0 incidents around Bathurst is a hero. But I am also going to go with Mr. Sam Boozin. He doesn't get on to practice as much as he'd like to. He doesn't manage to get all the racing in that he'd like to. He also runs his own league, and from being sort of involved in that league from a stewarding point of view, he has a hell of a lot of more work on his hands with his lot than we do with our lot. So, yep, my driver of the meeting is going to be Mr. Sam Boozin. It's probably the first time I've ever said it, and hopefully it will be the last time I ever say it. So, well done, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Clyde. Thank you, Johnny.
Okay, guys, so at this point in time, we are going to bring in our guest driver, Mr. Ronald Moons. Those of you that have been with us from the start will know all about Ronald's original team, Racing in Socks, which was a very, very sort of funny thing, and there was a bit of a jokery going on around it. So let me drag him in. Ronald Moons, welcome to the podcast.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me.
You're very, very quiet for me. Can't beat a few technical issues.
I hope this is better.
Still quiet, but I can hear you.
Hello?
So whilst you fiddle with your settings, Ronald, you've been with us from the start. You've seen the league grow. You've seen, hopefully, the driving standards improve, the racing get closer. Obviously, you had a couple of probably a couple of seasons where you didn't get to race as much as you wanted to. So, from your perspective, as a league, from where we started to where we are now, what improvements have you seen?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes. I was fiddling around with some voice settings and apparently it was not working. So I hope this is better now.
Like I say, you're still quiet for me, but don't worry, I can hear you.
Move the mic closer to your mouth.
Well, it's a headset, so it's kind of close already, but I'll see if I can do something about it while I'm talking. So
Okay, so I don't know if you heard my question or not. It was a
No.
bit long-winded.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, from where we started to where we are now, what are the main improvements that you've seen?
Regarding the league, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, the most obvious thing is actually the driving. I visited some other leagues, and the driving in the V8 league is one of the better. Actually, it's most of the time it's clean, uh, which is not always easy because it's a difficult car to drive. But it's fair racing, and okay, sometimes people spin and you get caught in a crash and things like that happen, but it's not on a regular basis. It's like most of the time, you start and you can finish a race, and that's the most positive thing about this league. I believe it's the driving.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. And from your personal thing, you've put a lot of laps in this season compared with the last couple of seasons, and I think your results are showing the amount of seat time you're getting. Are you enjoying the car again?
Yeah, definitely. And for me, it's the best car that you can use as a training tool, actually, because if you know how to drive this car, then the overall feel for like a GT car will become better as well. At least that's my experience. The more I drive the V8, the better I get in another car as well. Um, I wish I could practice more, but yeah, I have a busy life, so it's not always easy to get laps in. But that's I'm very thankful for the sprint series, for instance, because that's the best training for the main series actually. but I do feel like if I could get more laps in, I probably could gain a bit more time. But I have to be honest as well. I don't think I can gain massive or get way faster than I'm now. So I'm kind of on top of my performance actually. Um, and I hope that in the next season the midfield will become a bit larger because um, I tend to get lonely sometimes in races. Once the faster guys have come through, then it's a bit lonely. Um, so I hope the midfield will grow.
Yeah, and sort of leading on from that, obviously everybody's excited that we are allegedly getting these new cars. Do you think I think the cream will always rise to the top. I think we'll always have the same people up the top. But for the rest of us, the midfield guys, the slower guys, do you think it will be a bit more of a level playing field with a new car that's, hopefully going to handle differently and react differently, and everybody's in the same boat that they've got to learn a new car? Do you think that sort of thing is going to help the midfield battles become closer?
Maybe if it's well, it's a difficult car to drive, that's for sure. So it takes a lot of time to get the hang of it. So maybe with a new car, it will be easier to get started. Um, and eventually, like you say, the fast guys will always be fast. So they probably will learn the car a lot faster than I will. Um, but it could help to get people in. Although I do hope that it still remains more or less a difficult car to drive because, like I said, for me it's one of the best training tools. Actually, it's because it's a hard car. It helps to be better with other cars. Actually,
That's what scares me as well. Hi, Ronald.
Hey.
I hope it stays difficult to drive. I hope they don't dumb it down. I've heard a lot of talk about that it's going to be more like a GT3, and if that's the case, i.e., much higher grip levels, it'll be a shame. But we'll try not to be too negative and keep our fingers crossed. See what it's like. Ronald, have you got experience of the new tyre model? Have you tried the TCR or the Skip Barber? And what do you think of
no,
that?
I bought it. I've done some laps with the skip just to see how it felt, but not enough to actually talk about it. Um, I might hop in some league with the TCR just to learn the new tire model to be prepared when the V8 gets a new tire model. But I have no experience yet.
I think the new tyre model is going to change quite a lot. I know you said the cream rise to the top side, but I think that's going to make some big differences for some people. This new tyre model on this car, as it has in the TCR League, for example, that I drive, it's changed the order and the pace of people from the old Kia League that I was in. So there's some interesting differences with some fast guys struggling, and similarly some mid-pack guys suddenly finding loads of pace. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's one of the most difficult things to get right. Actually, is the tire model. That's Um, that's one of the reasons why I like iRacing more than other software. Um,
Because they're constantly trying to evolve it
yeah,
and find something. Yeah.
yeah. I'm not saying the result is always as you would like to be, but um, like if you have software with like 300 cars in it, and to me it's hard to believe that you can maintain a car model and tire model for 300 different cars. To me it's like nah, that's not gonna work. That means that at least half of the cars is just using the same base, and it's just a shell around the same base actually.
Yeah, it's an average model as
Yeah.
opposed to an accurate model.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Okay, so going back to you and your racing, Ronald. 13th at Bathurst, lap down. Was you happy with that? Disappointed, or is that sort of where you expected to finish?
The main goal was to survive, so that went well. I was also trying not to get any incidents, but unfortunately, first pit stop in pit lane, get I got my first 1x, so that plan didn't work either.
Was
So I
that on
was just
entry by any chance?
yeah. So
Horrible pit lane.
yeah. Um, and from then on it was just like, okay, just try to survive. I was also trying to save fuel, but I don't know what happened, but that didn't work. I had to put in 20, I'm not sure how much gallon it is, but I had to put in 28 liters at the end for the last stint, but I had no pace. For me it's just surviving. That was everything that I planned.
Okay, so you sit 11th in points in the main championship. You're only 69 points behind Ant Woodward with 5 races to go. And then in front of Ant, there's another couple of places that you can get. Same similar sort of question anyway. Are you happy where you are in the championship? Did you expect to be a bit higher up, or are you exceeding your own expectations?
Well, it's better than I hoped because it has been a while since I've been driving the car. Um, so I'm quite happy actually, and I do race with the championship in mind because um, I like the pace and talent to win races. So for me, it's all about the championship, trying to get consistent results. And the spot where I'm now, I think that's more or less my place. I think Anthony is still a bit faster than me. Sometimes I can more or less keep up. It depends on the track. So I think um, that is the correct spot for me in the championship at this time.
So your best result this season has been a top 5, which probably it's going to sound really shitty, but probably helped by a reverse grid, I would have thought. But you must be happy, that you've scored a top 5.
Yeah, definitely. And the reverse grid do create opportunities for guys like me in the midfield to have a better result than usual. But it all depends on how you handle the upcoming faster guys because they will come through. And yeah, so it's always I'm always thinking about the championship and see if it's wise to let the faster car go by directly or just keep them up as long as you can. That's always the rational strategy I, I struggle with.
Okay. And one last question from me before I hand you to the Wolves. We mentioned it before you came on. Your old team, Racing in Socks. Is there any chance of that being resurrected in the future?
Well, it wasn't really a team. It was just me and the brother of my girlfriend. Um, but he's not really into it anymore. Just not like me. So I don't think I will set it up. And the current team is just a one-man team actually. Um, I had to switch jobs a few months back, and um, by sending in my application for different jobs, I decided to create a logo for myself. And because it's an R and an M. I said, okay, let's create a team with that logo as well. And then it was either Rectal Mayhem or Race Masters, so I chose the latter.
You did just say rectal mayhem, didn't you?
Yes.
I think I've seen that film on the top shelf somewhere.
Really? Is it a movie? It was just
Well,
just
if it isn't, it should be.
yeah. Maybe we can make one.
No, you guys, not me.
Well, yeah, well, okay.
So,
Back to the
Tony,
racing.
any questions for Ronald before we move on?
Yeah, I'm going to change that subject. Ronald, you do some real life racing as well?
I did one rally, but on a low level. But I grew up in an area where there was always a rally each year. Unfortunately, that's already like I think 20 years ago. But I always said I want to do this one at least one time. So I did one rally, and then I was into drifting as well. And because I only live 20 minutes away from Zolder, I help people discover the track. So I would be involved with an organization who um, organizes track days, and then the people who got there for the first time, I show them around in Zolder, so that they know where to brake and turn and things like that.
So we should be seeing good results from you at Zolder in the future.
I wish they were better actually, but it's funny actually because um, having driven there in real life helps in the sim actually. It's it's really astonishing how accurate it is actually. Maybe some points where you could turn in a little bit earlier than than in real life, but it's really nice to see um, the how real it actually is. I've driven in Zolder, Spa, and Zandvoort, and those tracks as well. It's like yeah, it's really nice how accurate it is. The only thing in Spa that's missing is the first time I went there is how steep the uphill section is. Eau Rouge and Ridion. It's very uphill. It's you don't always see that in the game, but it's quite realistic actually.
Yeah, I found the same thing with Mosport. I've done a number of laps at Mosport in real life and in the sim. It's it's frighteningly how accurate it is. So yeah, I agree with you there. One thing I did want to mention, Ronald, is it's always a pleasure racing with you. Very predictable, and you don't have to make it easy for the fast guys coming through. I think that you can stand your own for sure. Maybe try a little harder when it's Johnny behind you, and but yeah. And one last thing I'd like to mention, you're just a one man team right now. Don't be afraid to put it out there and ask for a teammate or two, because I think there's guys out there that like to join the team, but sometimes they're afraid to ask. So the more teams in the series, I think the better it is, and the stronger the individual drivers become.
Yeah, I will definitely think about that. But the thing with the team is, I have been driving for Simmortal, um, and it was great fun. But you have to put time and effort in a team as well, and depends on work and things like that. And if you really can't commit, um, then um, I rather wait until I have more time, and so I can commit to a team as well.
Yeah, so Yeah, and don't forget as well, if these new cars come out, we're expecting an influx of drivers to the league. So, there'll be people wanting to join teams. And to be fair, Ronald, you've got your team, and you can sign drivers to it and just let them do all the work. That's what I do with Tony, anyway.
That's indeed a good idea. By the way, Tony was actually very lucky in race 3 in the sprint series, because I remember in the 90-degree corner just before the back straight, I was sliding and I just nearly missed him actually. So
I saw it in the mirror.
I was really close. So I'm not really yet ready for holding off everything or fighting a bit harder. Just keeping the car on track is the best thing I can do at the moment.
Oh, you're doing a good
It's not a
job.
bad plan. Johnny, any questions from you for Ronald before we move on?
No, I think Tony's kind of covered the questions there that I had as well. And just to say, it's good to have you in the league, Ronald. I'll just second what Tony said. It's always great having you on track. And the only other thing I will say is Rectal Mayhem is a great team name. And funnily enough, we have a very similar name at XVR for NQR. It's very close to that.
I have to think about that because NQ. Yeah, okay, yeah. You probably can make something about that as well.
So yeah, obviously it's Mr. Ronald Moons. Hopefully he's going to stick around with us whilst we preview Pork Chop Raceway. And just whilst we've got the chance, I would like to personally thank Ronald for what he does for the league. He's a bit of a silent partner, but he does sort out our shall I say, our IT needs in the background. So thanks for that, Ronald, and everything that you do for the league. So right, guys, Road Atlanta, the Pork Chop. We've got a sprint race and a feature race coming up. We obviously had the sprint series there this weekend. So I'm going to start with Tony because I believe Tony had a couple of firsts and a second. It seemed like a track that it seemed difficult to overtake with a few cars on the track. We're expecting a 20 plus grid for the main series on Saturday. Where are the overtakes going to come from? Are you able to set somebody up there, or are you literally waiting for the driver in front to make a mistake?
There's a couple of spots. Turn 1, if you get a really good exit of the last corner, I think there's a possibility into turn 1 and going up the short hill there. And then on the back straight, going into the jog left, the left-right combination. And I'm going to say it now, I don't think anybody should be surprised if someone doesn't get their elbows out in that particular point, because that is the passing opportunity. I know guys are going to make their cars wide there, but at some point in time, someone in 40 laps is going to push it.
So when we interviewed Johnny on Saturday night, we did speak about the passing opportunity at the end of the back straight, and we watched George try it a couple of times by going on the right-hand side down the back straight, so on the outside for the left-hander, trying to get onto the inside for the right-hander. But it seemed as if there wasn't a lot of grip out there, and especially George just couldn't keep his car alongside enough to claim the moral high ground on the right-hander. Is that something that you guys are going to be practicing with your teammates, see if it is possible to get round there because of the big drag that you get down the straight? I'll ask that to Tony first, because we did talk to Johnny about it on Saturday.
Yeah, I think on the outside, it's definitely possible to do it. It will just depend on how willing the other participant is to give room, both in the left-hander and the right-hander. So if you're going to get squeezed or not, but it's possible to make it there.
And Johnny, you obviously on Saturday you spoke about going down that back straight and maybe making a feint to the right and then trying to get up the inside. Is that still your favoured plan for an overtake there, or are you looking at, like Tony saying, just try and get round that outside as much as you can, get your elbows out and hope for the best?
I think it was George that was talking about the feints on the straight, but it is a possible way of doing it. The outside is definitely possible. I've been overtaken around the outside of that corner so many times in various different cars. But like Tony said, it's risky. It relies on the other driver playing ball. They haven't got to jump out of the way. They just got to leave a car's width, and then it's still extremely difficult. But it's definitely possible. But everybody in this league's pretty good and clean, and fair and respectful and all those other words that sum it up. So it should be possible, but you got to be very committed, and it's just like I said the other day. It's weighing up the odds. If you want 0 incursions, it's probably not going to happen, because there's going to be some door banging, even if people leave each other room around there. It's definitely possible, but you just got to be a bit more aggressive than what we were. But that doesn't mean boshing people out of the way. That just means you got to be prepared to touch and possibly take a little bit of grass on the inside, and blah blah blah, which you'll pay a price for in incursions and your bonus points. So we see how the races play out. I'm quite looking forward to it.
So for the sprint race, obviously, because it is, I keep saying it's difficult to overtake. Qualifying for you guys up the top is going to be, premium. I presume in both of your heads you've got the scenario where you qualify on pole and lead from start to finish. You had some racing against each other in the sprint series. You sort of know how to defend. I was watching Tony down the back straight, and he was just inching his car over to the left just to make sure nobody went down the inside down the back straight. Is it going to be one of those that if you qualify second, you're just going to have to settle for second, or at this stage in the season where there's that much on the line, and like we said earlier, 2 bad races and everybody's back in it. For you, Johnny, is it just a case of collecting the points that are available without taking too many risks just for the first race?
Not really. I'd like to win the championship, obviously, but there's not 10 grand prize money up for grabs. I'd rather have a great race.
There's 10 yen.
Yeah, I'm not going to drive around and avoid everything just for the sake of bagging some points so I win the championship. I'd much rather have a fantastic race, and hopefully that's clean and I make it to the end in a decent position. I'm not going to take the mick. I'm not going to do anything stupid of it, hopefully, not deliberately. But at the same time, I'm not going to play it safe either. So I think as far as going around the outside in that corner at the end of the straight, it's going to be a lot easier for the fast guys to do that move coming through the field in the main race. I think between me, Tony, George, Rich, Victor, it's very difficult to do it because it is such a hard car, and it's probably more the right-hander after the left. It's probably quite easy to get there on the left, but to carry the momentum out the right against some of the fast guys, even if you are left room, that's where it's difficult to finish that move. So yeah, I think it'll be easier, and you'll probably see it from the fast guys in the main race coming through the pack, but whether you see it between the top guys in the first race will be interesting, but it'd be a lot more difficult.
And Tony, your best scenario, especially for the sprint race, must be qualify on pole, lead from start to finish, and hope Johnny and George have some action along the way.
Yeah, that would be ideal, I suppose. My qualifying's been rubbish of late, and I still have to figure out why that's happening. But I predict that we're going to see a 119.9, 119.8 for the pole, and I'm sure that Johnny and George are both capable of that. I think the sprint race will be a matter of if someone makes a mistake or something. I don't expect that there will be any passing of note, in that race. I think there was some excellent racing in the sprint series with Johnny and myself, and George myself. George and Johnny,
I really enjoyed that race. I have to say.
and Richard, great performance from Richard as well. In that second race, he had very, very good pace. I think the second race is going to be the interesting one. You can make it without stopping, I think. So it'll be interesting to see what the strategy is going to be. Need to save a couple of gallons, I think. So do you save fuel and not stop, or do you go all out and then take fuel and maybe tires, because you need to take a lot less fuel than the tires take time. So it'll be interesting to see how the strategies play out this weekend.
Yeah, and obviously the race 2 on the night, the feature race. We're assuming that you guys do well in the sprint race, and hoping, from my side anyway, that we get a large reverse grid, which will, see the Brandons, the Klostermans, the McClays starting at the back of the grid, and hoping that we get a big grid as well. It's, this is where I always go wrong. I look at tracks that are hard to overtake on, or I think they are, and I say, you fast guys, I don't think you're going to get through, and we're going to have a new winner, and somehow you make up 23 places and win. And then the tracks that I think that are easier to overtake, sometimes you struggle to get through. So you're both in two different circumstances with the championship. In my view, Johnny just needs to score decent points in each round, and Tony needs wins. So I think you might be going at it from slightly different directions. So Tony, the feature race, is it going to be an elbows out, get through the pack as quick as you can, and again, hoping that Johnny and George, have a mishap along the way?
Well, I think that you need to make places up on the first lap. That's generally where I've had success in the past. I might be a little bit better on cold tires than some of the mid-pack guys, so that presents some opportunity perhaps. But in order to win it, you got to finish it. So you can't be too aggressive. And I think there's a couple of places in the first few corners that you just have to be patient. You have to just fall in line and wait until the back stretch and hopefully get a good toe down there.
And Johnny, I know you've already said you like the good racing and things like that, but surely, with a decent result in race 1, if it goes that way, and then starting near the back for race 2, you're going to have one eye on the championship, surely, when you're behind somebody and deciding whether to stick your nose in where it's not wanted.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm trying this season to be a bit calm. I mean, it's interesting that Tony's saying his tactic, if you like, is make up places early on the first lap when people are struggling on the colds. I almost do the complete opposite. I really try and take it easy and not catch people out and not put myself into any problems. On the first laps, I could go more aggressive, but I don't like doing it because when I've done it, 50% of the time, problems happen, caused by myself and others. So I take the complete opposite approach, really, especially in the longer races. Or I try to. So yeah, it's not so much thinking about the championship. It's just I want to get to the end of the race. I want to be in the race. So I also think you can cane your tyres if you push it too hard early on. Or I feel like I can. So I try not to do that. So it suits me to have an easy start, let things separate a little bit, and then start picking through the field. I think it's a little bit safer for me.
Okay, so Ronald, if you can get your microphone unmuted. Question for you is Road Atlanta as a track. Where does that rate in tracks for you? Is it a track that you enjoy? Is it a track that you dread? Is it just one of them sort of mediocre middle of the road tracks? Is it something that you're looking forward to?
Well, the track itself is in my top 5, I think. But with the V8, I'm not so good at it actually. But I do like the track, and it's they do have a race there. Is it 10 hours? It's Petit Le Mans, and I still remember that if you have driven the track for that long, then it's physically hurting your wrists and your hands. It's a very physical track as well for if you have to drive it for a long time. And I was struggling for grip in the sprint series, so I guess the 40-minute race will be a challenge on tires as well.
Okay, and Johnny, we've done the, I really like Bathurst, but I don't do very well there and got second. Where does Road Atlanta rate in your track scale?
I really like it. I'm just not very quick there. No, I do really like it. So hopefully I'm all right. Yeah, I'm doing too much TCR at the moment. I'm literally doing no practice for the V8s. Did an hour on the night before and an hour before the race, and that was it. So I'll put a little bit more time into it this week. Obviously Tony's got pace. George has got pace, so I need to find something, but I'm fairly confident I'll be able to find a little bit because I didn't really look before, so it was literally just doing laps. I was quite surprised to be pole because in practice I was a good 3/10 off both those guys in practice before the race. So yeah, I was surprised how race 1 played out.
You've been doing that a lot for the pole lately.
Yeah, but you were a lot quicker in practice, Tony. I was. Both of you were a good couple of attempts up on me.
Yeah.
So I was
Sandbags.
quite sure.
That's what I think.
Well, I don't run low fuel in practice, so I don't know if you guys were running low fuel in the practice laps or not. But
Sorry, didn't I say that out loud?
yeah, I
No, I
don't
was
run the
on-
low fuel. So.
Yeah, I was on full fuel when I ran my practice laps. I did run a 20.09 in qualifying, but I had a 1X on exit of the last corner. So your lap was very solid.
So I'm guessing that Road Atlanta is right up there on the Tony Kloosterman favourite tracks, maybe?
No, not at all. I think I've done so many laps at Road Atlanta that I don't relish going there anymore. And to be quite honest, I think that there's 2 or 3 spots on this track that give me a lot of difficulty. It may not show in the times, but I think that if I could work out what I'm doing wrong on a couple of sections of the track, I could probably pick up a couple of tenths. But I think I've got some really bad habits ingrained in me here.
I know what they are. What was I going to say?
You'll have to pass a few shekels the way of Mike Taliancic, get some training.
Or book me up in the driving coaching when it happens.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so that's Road Atlanta. That's coming up on Saturday night, live on Apex Racing TV. So we move on to the iRacing news section, and I am literally blank. I have no iRacing news. So I'm going to throw it to Tony first, just on the off chance that you've heard anything that's going on.
Not a damn thing. And I've been watching the boards every day. I expected that there might be a bit of a preview coming out, because we're only 2.5 weeks away from the new build, and generally Tony Gardner puts out something around this time. Yeah, but I haven't seen it yet, and really looking forward to a new V8 car, and as both Johnny and Ronald have said, hopefully not too easy, but easy enough that maybe we bring in a few more drivers, which would be nice.
And Johnny, you've got a lot of mates and buddies in the TCR series. Any rumours doing the rounds over there?
No iRacing rumours. I didn't actually realise the cars were coming that soon. I suppose it is only 3 weeks. Yeah, there's only 2 rounds left, isn't there? So, yeah, that's nice, but I haven't heard anything. I don't really look or listen until things happen.
Yeah, no, I must admit I'm not as much of an avid reader of the forums as I used to be. Although, I agree with Tony, 2.5 weeks till the new build. I think if I was the marketing person for iRacing, I would be pushing this V8 out to all corners of the planet at the moment. We've had it in the past with, I think the one I remember was the Porsche. We had umpteen different adverts before it was released. And yeah, it's all got a bit quiet.
Well, most of them only in the week leading up to it, though.
Yeah, possibly. I just hope there's not some hiccup in the background and it's going to get delayed after everybody getting excited about it. But
that's exactly
I suppose we'll just have to wait and see.
That's exactly why I don't look out and listen and get all excited until it actually happens. So believe it when I see it. It's called getting old.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I get excited when I'm breathing in the morning when I wake up. So, right, on to our questions, and we haven't got many. We had one from George that was retracted, but luckily Sam got hold of it anyway, and it's pointed at Tony. What did you change on your Atlanta set? Now, I am presuming it's from a comment that you made in the chat at the Sprint series where you said you was running your setup. I'm going to say you was
this
rubbish.
Was where he was in the shower.
Yeah,
that's right.
You changed something, and boom, there it was. Is it something you can share, or is it a team secret?
The famous
No.
Eureka moment in the shower.
Yeah. No, I'll share the premise behind the change, and that is that I was thinking about where I was having difficulty with the car and it losing grip, and one of those places was on the very last corner. So, for all of you that have run Road Atlanta, you know that when you're coming down the hill, it's very easy to lose rear end grip. And I was trying to think of what I could do to stabilize the rear. And
This is in the shower, yeah?
yeah, I'm thinking about this the morning of the race.
God, I can't
Yeah.
wait to retire.
Hey,
I really hope you had a shower cap on as well.
when you're
Keep
old,
your hair
and retired, you've got lots of time to think. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the shower, but this is when this happened. And so I was thinking about what can I do to try and create a little bit more rear grip. And I think I had gone far enough on dampening that going any further on stiffening the rear dampers wasn't going to help. That stiffening the rear springs would cause it maybe to slide a bit more. And the change I made was to the anti-roll bars. I won't say how big a change it was, but it was substantial compared to what I normally run.
Ooh, right. So everybody out there changing the ARBs this weekend from stiff to soft and soft to stiff. So thanks for sharing that, Tony. And a question for Johnny from Tony. Your impressions on the new tyre model. What are you finding works and doesn't? Obviously, Johnny's been running in this TCR Sunday series. And the car has got the new tyre model. Oh, and the Thursday one. It's only the Sunday one I remember because we had to change the whole world because you was running.
Yeah.
So you've had nearly a full season now with this new tyre model. So what can people expect? And as Tony said, what you finding works and doesn't.
I like it for starters. What am I finding works? I think it rewards smoothness. It doesn't like aggression. And the heat plays a big part. So if, i.e., aggression, you can cook the tires and kill the tires. I think there's much more of a life. There's a certain amount of content in the tire. Is probably the best way to explain it. And it's very easy to use a lot of that content early on when the tires are cold and have nothing left. So it rewards thoughtful driving, let's say. And then obviously the big difference is it's the cold tires. It's very, very different, and they are very, very cold with very little grip early on for a good few laps, i.e. at least 2 laps. It's very difficult, and that's in a small TCR front-wheel drive car. So I can only imagine how difficult, amazing, wherever you stand on it will be in the V8. But that's going to be the biggest, most dramatic change is the early laps. There is no grip whatsoever. So,
and how are you finding the tire wear? Is it accelerated compared to what we currently experience?
it can be. It is down to, like I said, it's down to how you decide to drive the car. So if you really want to push early on, you're going to lose. You're going to do some very quick laps, and then you're going to be paying the price for that at the end. So,
and can you back off on the tires and recover them, or once they're gone,
really.
they're gone?
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, because obviously with the current tyre model, you tend to cook them, but you can back off and your tyres come back to you. Are you saying with the new tyre model, that's it? Once you've ruined them, they're
no,
ruined?
it's not so much cooking and ruining. It's it's like there's a certain amount of grip, and you need to drive accordingly to make that grip last the race. Or you can drive and use it all up early and have nothing left at the end, or you can take your time early and have plenty left at the end. So you need to think about what you're doing. That's probably the best way, and it's a big thing that a lot of people don't seem to realise. So, yeah, but I think it's great. But what you tend to find is that what it does is it really evens the field early on, because the slower guys are using everything, and the faster guys are just taking their time. So that can create some interesting situations. But then all of a sudden, the slower guys have used everything, and the quicker guys have got everything left, and the gap in pace just starts to extend. I think it's also, for me, there's a lot more feel in the tyre, so it's easier, more informative to drive, which again will be great on the V8. I think, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I just hope the car's not too easy because of it. But yeah, it's a very different. Yeah, with the V8 at the moment, the current tyre, like you say, you don't want to spin them up and heat the tyres up, because then you have to cool them down. Yeah, but it's a very temporary thing that you can manage backwards and forwards. I think the consequences with the new tyre models are much bigger. So if you do, you won't lose all grip and have the car sliding, but your lap times will just drop off. And there's nothing you can do about it if you choose to use it all too early. So you need to be very careful, very smooth. That would be my thoughts and advice on that one.
So are you finding that there's more in-race passing happening?
Yeah, well, in the TCR car, I don't know if the TCR car invites it because of the nature of the car, but yeah, I mean, there's great battling, and like I say, some people, it's when you have the grip and how you choose to use it, and people are choosing to use it or not aware of they've even got a choice, so they're using it very early as opposed to others that aren't using it. And it's tire management is a much bigger thing. I think people may disagree with that, but I'm doing quite well in it, so must be doing something right. But that's what it feels like to me, and I like that, and it will be interesting to see it on the V8, because if the car is as difficult as it is now, you're not going to cook your tires, but you're going to basically be throwing grip away out the exhaust of the car. You're just going to be dumping grip in corners, and there will be a price to pay later on in the race, but in lap time. So not so much handling, but lap time. The car feels just as good, but you just don't have the pace. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
All sounds very, very intriguing, and I think the best way to sum it up is simply by saying Victor Tanaka will be pitting every other lap. Right, guys. So there are no more questions tonight. We do have a prediction from Nikolai, who says that Rich was very fast in the sprints. He's going to win, so no pressure there. So before we wrap up, guys, we've done really well on time again. I'll start with Johnny and go through the boards. Any last thoughts before we go?
No, looking forward to Road Atlanta. Hopefully there's no bad messages from iRacing about the new V8s. Like I said, I didn't realise they were that close, so that's actually quite exciting. But I will wait until that actually happens. Yeah, and just hope the last few weeks of the season go well for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Tony, so before we close, any last thoughts from you?
No, looking forward to the races this weekend. I think it's going to be entertaining. I think we had some great races on Saturday past, and the pointy end of the field is going to be interesting for sure. And it looks like we'll have some good mid-pack races. hopefully we get a good turnout. Be nice to see 20, 25 cars, and best of luck to everyone.
And Ronald, so same question to you, if you're still around. Any last thoughts before we go?
I just want to say thank you for having me on the podcast, and also thank you for running this league, because I know it's a lot of work in the background. So thank you for that, because it's always a pleasure to race with you guys, and I hope it will be for many years to come. And thank you for letting me say rectal mayhem on the podcast.
I just think you should just keep saying it. And if there isn't a team next season called Rectal Mayhem, I am going to be disappointed, because I would love to see that on an iRacing live broadcast.
Yeah. Might give you some issues if you want to put the broadcast on the iRacing esports network, but not sure if they will allow it.
Excellent. Well, obviously, thanks for being with us tonight. And like I say, I know a lot of people don't realise that you do stuff in the background. So from me, it's a thank you. And Mr. Sam Boozin, who's got his mic muted at the moment, but I know he's listening. As you was voted as the driver of the meeting from Bathurst, we're going to let you talk tonight. So, any closing thoughts from you?
Really looking forward to the new tire model and hopefully on the new V8 cars. Also, good races like we saw this week on the sprint series. I will do my best to race this one too, because I really love the track. So yeah.
Okay, well, I'll apologise on Sam's behalf, because I have no idea what he just said.
As always, Clyde. As always.
It just leaves me to thank Johnny and Tony as our usual panel. Thanks to Sam for what he does in the background, making this podcast possible, and thanks to Ronald for being our special guest. Don't forget, join us this Saturday, where we've got the main series at Road Atlanta on Apex Racing TV. I'm sure the racing is going to be fun and fast. Let's get as many cars on the grid as we can, and hopefully we will be back to brighten up your Monday again next week, with episode 9 of our podcast, hopefully back on track in our usual slot. So thank you, everybody, and it's good night from me.
Good night.
No.